The discovery of the ambush. Lieutenant Marcus Swift stared in disbelief at the decrypted coordinates revealing a diabolical ambush planned by the savage Terran horde against planet Earth. With no time to lose, Marcus raced against the clock, pushing his ship to its limits. He alone carried the vital intelligence of this ambush that meant life or death for millions. Marcus was determined to reach Earth Command in time with the news to give humanity a fighting chance, though he knew not if they had the power to withstand the coming onslaught. General Holden stood still as his command room buzzed with whispers and boots shuffling on the floor. He stared at the holotable, showing a few blinking ship lights floating over the outpost terrain. Marcus stood firm, his uniform dust-stained from drills. "Sir, normal tactics won't win this," he said bluntly. "We need the planet itself." Holden met Marcus's gaze, the general's eyes weary from lack of sleep. "Explain," he said. "Razorbacks up north. A stampede could crush a battalion." Marcus outlined a desperate plan. Holden nodded. "Make it happen, Lieutenant. Fast." In the wilds, Marcus and volunteers hacked at plants, clearing paths for the beasts. Their hands turned green from the work. A tech sergeant tapped her tablet as drones buzzed through the trees like insects. Drones updated to herd the Razorbacks toward the landing zones, she reported, eyes on her screen. A drone emitted sounds that rumbled through the brush. The ground shook as a glittering herd of Razorbacks thundered past, driven by the drones. Next, they turned to the acid spitters. A biologist carefully put the creatures in hidden containers. "They'll melt armor if the Terran get close," he said. At night, Marcus and a programmer knelt by a mining robot, exposed circuits in the cool air. They updated its targeting. "Now you hunt Terran," Marcus whispered. In the militia camp, Marcus addressed stone-faced miners. "Use your knowledge of this planet. Together, we're unbreakable." Nights blurred as the Terran fleet approached. Marcus walked through soldiers checking weapons, breaths visible in the cold. Dread hung heavy, but resolve held firm. Marcus paused by a young woman loading her rifle. "Ready for this?" he asked. She looked up, a grim smile on her lips. "We stand strong or fall. I choose strong." Dawn light stretched over their defenses. They had turned a peaceful colony into a fortress, a shared understanding between those ready to fight. They embodied Earth's defiance and waited for the battle to start. The battle begins. The sky cracked open, split by void as the Terran ships warped in over Gaia Prime. The general's plan worked. An old shield shimmered to life around the planet. Green plasma bolts hammered the barrier, throwing strange shadows below. The bolts slid off, energy fading away. "We bought some time." The general's voice filled Marcus's earpiece. "See those dropships?" "I saw them. Black hulls against the stars," Marcus replied. "Yes, sir. Moving to stop them." Marcus flicked switches, activating the drones. The forest erupted with false roars. Razorbacks charged from the trees, crystalline bodies glittering. They crushed the scouts underfoot. Trees buckled as the beasts smashed the first wave. The forest choked on dust and screams. The general urged Marcus on. "Hold them off, Lieutenant. Report." "They're breaking through," Marcus said. Blue shields snapped up around the Terran. They fired back, bright beams cutting through the woods. The acid spitters found their marks, armor melting away, but the Terran adapted quickly, burning the insects back. "Squad Bravo, fall back to Echo. Switch to Plan Delta," Marcus said into the radio, static and despair in their voices. His people knew the land. They herded the enemy into the cliffs and canyons. As Marcus slid down a bank, a miner nodded, setting a charge. "This way," he said, pointing to a hidden tunnel. They would make their stand in the stone. The Terran pressed on, but they dug in with desperation. Every shot counted. Every trap snapped shut. They couldn't win, but they would make the enemy bleed. The general watched from above, shielding them from the worst blows. He gave them time to fight, to survive. As the Terran charged, pride swelled in Marcus. Their defiance burned against the black sky. They were outgunned, but they fought with everything to lose. The Terran would learn. On Gaia Prime, humans give hell. The hidden weapon. General Holden's hands flew over the controls. He had to keep the shield up as the enemy ships fired plasma at them. His eyes stayed on the screens, the blue shield lines breaking apart as the plasma hit. "Give all extra power to the shields," Holden yelled. The operators moved fast to follow his order. The defense platforms over the planet started to go out. Enemy fighters cut through them easily. The broken platforms drifted in space, the last flare of their weapons lighting up the blackness. Down below, Marcus felt the ground shake from explosions above. He looked up and saw bursts of fire as platforms blew apart. No more eyes above to spot threats. Holden's strained voice came over the radio. "Lieutenant, we're blind up here now. You're our eyes on the ground." Marcus nodded and clicked his radio. "Copy, sir." Things had gotten bad. It was on him now. The trap set, the wild animals they turned to allies, every person ready to defend their home. As Marcus thought over their few options left, his radio crackled with a surprise message. A scratchy voice said, "Lieutenant, it's Heron. Get to the caves. We found something here, old." Old Man Heron was a prospector. He claimed to find treasure from the last war, a legend to the settlers, but maybe their only hope now. Marcus gathered a team and headed into the forest to the caves Heron had found. Burnt plant stench hung thick in the air from the fighting above. The cave opening loomed like a dark mouth in the cliff face. They went in, lights cutting through the blackness. Heron led them deep under the surface. The stone walls squeezed tight around them. Their steps echoed off the cold ground. They came to a huge cavern, so big their lights couldn't reach the top. Row after row of old weapons and gear sat covered in dust, untouched by time. Marcus's hand hovered over a crate, fingers brushing the metal that seemed to hum with potential. EMP disruptors, plasma shields, and at the center, a pulse cannon. A sleeping giant waiting to awaken. Heron grinned wide. "Told you, Lieutenant. I told you." They quickly formed lines to pass equipment to the cave entrance. Muscles burned, but each piece they carried out offered a sliver of hope. They loaded it all onto vehicles and sent it to the fight. Marcus had the troops set up plasma shields along the front. He handed out EMP disruptors to key spots where they could hit the advancing enemy hardest. And there was the pulse cannon, a giant weapon that might save them or doom them. One shot they couldn't waste. As they worked, sweat ran down their faces. Distant booms reminded them time was short. Marcus looked over the massive cannon. This one shot had to count. "Now or never," he muttered, eyes fixed on the weapon. The team stepped back, faces smeared with dirt and resolve. Marcus gave the order. "Ready to fire on my command." His heart hammered in his chest, not with fear, but the weight of what he had to do. One shot to change the course of battle. One chance to show humanity would not fade quietly into the night. They would make the enemy burn, and with this pulse cannon, they just might scorch the heavens doing it. The turning point. Holden squinted at the screen glowing blue with Gaia Prime's sky. His fingers tapped commands on the console. Marcus had come through with the plasma shields and EMPs. It wasn't what Holden expected. "Good work, Lieutenant," Holden's voice crackled over the radio. "Get ready to push back." Marcus nodded, finger on the pulse cannon trigger. Cold metal pressed against his skin. Terran ships converged, bellies glowing, ready to destroy the settlement. Marcus pressed the button. Silent energy ripped through the cannon, unfurling over Gaia Prime like a storm. No sound, just blinding lights spreading across the sky. Terran ships fell lifeless. Settlers emerged, shouting. Marcus barked orders, voice hoarse. "Move, push them back." Soldiers clutched ancient rifles. Battle erupted, gunfire cracked in silent trenches. Marcus ducked a shot, wood splintering overhead. He sprinted to soldiers in a trench. "Remember your training. Marcus shouted, pulling a man down from exposure. Make every shot count. Holden's order came through. Advance, use their confusion. Marcus repeated it, vaulted the trench. Mud churned under his boots. His pounding heart saw human tenacity in grim faces and iron grips on weapons. The Terran lashed out, confused and cornered without tech. Green blood mixed with brown earth. Marcus used the land as a weapon. Canyons funneled them. Cliffs became traps. Settlers turned Gaia Prime against the tide. Hope flickered as the Terran fell. Maybe they could win. A shadow above smothered that hope. Marcus peered up, saw dread etched in his team. Terran command ship, the pulse cannon, their trump card, had no second shot. Hold your ground, Marcus shouted, a rallying cry swallowed by the wind. Holden's voice quivered over the radio. Lieutenant, we've run out of options. Desperation gnawed at Marcus. Maybe one left, sir. They don't know what Gaia Prime holds. Proceed, Holden responded, wariness breaking through. With everything. Marcus hashed a last plan, every piece moving. He activated buried mines. Detonate on my mark, he instructed. The tech sergeant readied. Marcus pinpointed a spot. Now. Explosions churned the earth, tossing Terran soldiers. The ground split, swallowing them. Marcus aimed for total war, their only chance. Holden's hand shook. Give them hell, Lieutenant. We will, Marcus vowed. Gaia Prime's mountains trembled as war roared. They fought not just for land, but survival. Each pulse of the battle etched in their souls. Victory teetered, a knife edge swaying. Marcus knew. They were more than settlers. They were warriors defending their home with every breath. And they would not break. The final stand. Holden's head dipped, eyelids heavy. He jerked upright as alarms blared. The command room was a flurry of movement, eyes fixed on screens displaying the encroaching Terran command ship. His fingers fumbled over the console, wiping sweat from his brow. Marcus's voice crackled through the comms, tinged with exhaustion but defiant. General, we're out of time. Holden straightened, voice steady. I know, Lieutenant. We go down fighting. Marcus stood atop a ridge, eyes sweeping over the battlefield. Gaia Prime had turned into a war zone, the settlers' last stand. His heart hammered, not with fear, but the determination to protect his home. He looked at his people, faces set with grim resolve, weapons ready. Listen up, he shouted, his voice carrying over the chaos. We hold this line. For Gaia Prime. For our families. The Terrans surged forward. Their relentless advance met with human tenacity. Marcus fired his rifle, each shot precise. The settlers fought with a fury born of desperation. The ground trembled under the weight of their determination. Explosions rocked the landscape, but they held their ground. In the command room, Holden's eyes never left the screen. Hold the line, he whispered, a prayer more than an order. The Terran command ship loomed closer, its shadow a harbinger of doom. Holden's fingers danced over the console, rerouting power, buying them precious seconds. Marcus ducked behind a boulder, reloading his rifle. His breath came in ragged gasps, but he pushed forward. He saw the fear in his people's eyes, but also the fire. They would not go quietly. Push them back, he roared, leading the charge. His voice was a beacon, guiding them through the darkness. The Terran command ship unleashed its final assault. Energy beams sliced through the air, carving a path of destruction. Marcus felt the heat on his skin, the ground shaking beneath his feet. But they held. They fought with everything they had. Every ounce of strength, every drop of blood. Holden's voice crackled through the comms, a lifeline. Lieutenant, the shield is failing. This is it. Marcus nodded, a silent acknowledgement. He raised his rifle, aiming for the Terran commander. His finger tightened on the trigger. A single shot rang out, piercing the chaos. The Terran commander fell, and a cheer rose from the settlers. Marcus's heart soared. They had done it. The Terran command ship faltered, its assault wavering. The settlers pressed forward, pushing the enemy back. Marcus's voice was hoarse, but he shouted encouragement. For Gaia Prime. For humanity. The Terran retreated, their lines breaking. Victory was within reach. Holden watched as the Terran ships warped out, leaving behind a battlefield littered with the remnants of war. His voice was thick with emotion. We did it, Lieutenant. We won. Marcus sank to his knees, exhaustion washing over him. He looked around at his people, their faces a mix of relief and sorrow. They had paid a heavy price, but they had won. They had defended their home. He raised his voice, a final rallying cry. Gaia Prime stands. The settlers cheered, their voices a chorus of triumph. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had chosen to fight, and they had won. Marcus's heart swelled with pride. They had proven that humanity would not be defeated. They had chosen peace, but they had also chosen to fight for it. And they had won. The aftermath and reflection. The sun rose over Gaia Prime, casting a golden light on the scared landscape. The settlers moved through the wreckage, their movement slow, but determined. They gathered the fallen, both friend and foe, laying them to rest. The air was heavy with the scent of smoke and the weight of loss. Marcus stood on the ridge, looking out over the battlefield. His heart ached for the lives lost, but he felt a deep sense of pride. They had defended their home, and they had won. He turned as General Holden approached, his steps heavy with exhaustion. "Lieutenant," Holden said, his voice hoarse. "We did it." Marcus nodded, a small smile on his lips. "Yes, sir, we did." They stood in silence, the weight of their victory settling over them. The settlers gathered in the square, their faces marked by fatigue and determination. Marcus stood before them, his voice steady. "We fought for our home. We fought for our families. And we won. But this is just the beginning. We have shown that we are strong. We have shown that we will not be defeated, and we will rebuild." The settlers cheered, their voices a testament to their resilience. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had chosen peace, but they had also chosen to fight for it, and they had won. As the days turned into weeks, the settlers began to rebuild. They worked together, their efforts a testament to their unity. They repaired the damage, planted new crops, and strengthened their defenses. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Marcus walked through the settlement, his heart swelling with pride. They had faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge, and they had overcome it. They had proven that humanity would not be defeated. They had chosen peace, but they had also chosen to fight for it, and they had won. General Holden approached, a small smile on his lips. "Lieutenant, you've done well." Marcus nodded, his voice steady. "Thank you, sir, but it was a team effort. We all fought for this." Holden clapped a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "And we will continue to fight. For our home. For our future." Marcus looked out over the settlement, his heart filled with hope. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had chosen peace, but they had also chosen to fight for it, and they would continue to fight, to protect their home, their families, and their future. They had proven that humanity would not be defeated. They had chosen peace, and they had won. Rebuilding and diplomacy. Weeks turned into months, and Gaia Prime began to heal. The settlers worked tirelessly, their efforts a testament to their resilience. They rebuilt homes, planted crops, and fortified their defenses. The scars of battle remained, but they served as reminders of their strength and unity. Marcus walked through the bustling settlement, his heart swelling with pride. Children played in the streets, their laughter a stark contrast to the echoes of war that once filled the air. The people of Gaia Prime had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. General Holden approached Marcus, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Lieutenant, we've received a message from Earth Command. They want to debrief us on the battle and discuss our future." Marcus nodded. "Understood, sir. When do we leave? Tomorrow, Holden replied. Get some rest. You've earned it. The next day, Marcus and Holden boarded a shuttle bound for Earth. As they traveled through the stars, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. Now, it was time to ensure that their hard-won peace would endure. Upon arrival at Earth Command, they were greeted with a hero's welcome. The halls buzzed with excitement, and officers saluted them as they passed. General Holden led Marcus to a large conference room, where high-ranking officials awaited. Lieutenant Swift, General Holden, began Admiral Thompson, a stern-looking man with sharp features. Your actions on Gaia Prime were nothing short of extraordinary. You've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Thank you, Admiral, Holden replied. But the credit goes to the people of Gaia Prime. They fought with everything they had. Admiral Thompson nodded. Indeed, but we must ensure that such a threat never endangers our colonies again. We need to strengthen our defenses and foster alliances with other species. Marcus spoke up. Admiral, if I may, the key to our victory was our ability to adapt and use our environment to our advantage. We need to support our colonies in developing their own unique defenses. Agreed, Thompson said. We'll start by fortifying our existing colonies and establishing new ones in strategic locations, and we must seek alliances with other species who share our desire for peace. The meeting continued late into the night as they outlined plans for a stronger, more united human presence in the galaxy. Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought for their home, and now they would fight for a lasting peace, the dawn of a new era. Back on Gaia Prime, life continued to flourish. The settlement had grown, new buildings rising alongside the repaired ones. The people of Gaia Prime worked together, their bond forged in the fires of battle. Marcus stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out over the fields. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see General Holden. Thinking about the future, Lieutenant? Holden asked. Yes, sir, Marcus replied. We've come so far, but there's still so much to do. Holden nodded. And we'll do it together. Earth Command has approved additional resources for our defenses and infrastructure. We're also reaching out to neighboring systems for potential alliances. As if on cue, a shuttle descended from the sky, landing nearby. The doors opened, and a group of representatives from various species emerged. Marcus recognized the dignitaries from previous encounters, leaders from the Xenar, the Zephyrs, and the Ralm. The Xenar leader, a tall figure with shimmering blue skin, approached Marcus. Lieutenant Swift, General Holden, it's an honor to meet you. We've heard of your bravery and the unity of your people. The honor is ours, Holden replied. We seek to build a future where all species can coexist in peace. The representatives exchanged greetings, and discussions began. They talked about trade, mutual defense, and cultural exchanges. The air was filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. Days turned into weeks as the alliances solidified. Gaia Prime became a hub of activity, a symbol of cooperation and unity. Marcus worked tirelessly, coordinating efforts to integrate the new allies and fortify their defenses. One evening, as the sun set over Gaia Prime, Marcus stood on a hill overlooking the settlement. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had fought for their home, and now they were building a future where peace could thrive. General Holden joined him, a contented smile on his face. We've come a long way, Marcus. This is just the beginning. Yes, sir, Marcus agreed. But it's a good beginning. Holden nodded. We've shown that humanity is capable of great things. Together, we'll continue to build a future where all species can live in peace. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. They had chosen to fight for their home, and they had won. Now they were choosing to fight for a future where peace and unity prevailed. And he knew that, with the strength and determination of humanity and their new allies, they would succeed.